What about mountain running? There is one event that's going to be taking place on the 22nd of February, and this is in Meru, the Mount Kenya Running Champ in Meru County, and we've got the technical advisor to the at the event, and Douglas Wakiri. Douglas, first of all, mountain running and is one endurance event, and it's common in Europe, but in Kenya, in as much as we've got great athletes like Lucy Wambui and Jeffrey Ndongo, how popular is it amongst athletes?
I think, thank you, Wahome. I think if we start a little bit with the history about the mountain running, it has a history of 30 years in existence. Kenya has not been able to pick it up. I know that the first camp was done in Longonot, and then, of course, with His Excellencies, the Governor of Meru, wanting to make Meru great, we looked at the mountain and we see Mount Kenya is 40% in Meru. So this also brought a very good platform for us to see how we can start the mountain running. And this mountain running, I think, is very special. It is not very popular, but I think it is one diverse sport that is going to diversify when athletes are unable to do the fast runnings of Kina Eliuds, people who are stronger, they're not faster, because the mountain running requires endurance, it requires strength, and a lot of discipline, because you're tackling a very different environment. And being it a championship, it even makes it a little bit difficult, because within the altitude that you're going to have, which in this case we are starting at 2,800 meters above sea level. At that level you can see already the air is already thin, but you're climbing up to 2,900. At 2,900 you go up another hill within the 2,900, and you'll go down the valley and come up again, all the way up to 3128 meters above sea level.
So it's an elevation of about roughly 300 meters, undulating, going up and down.
Yes, but you're starting from 28 to 3,000 meters, just a little bit over, but up and down, you have hills in between. But of course, coming down would be all the way downhill to the finish.
So we'll be getting onto the course about that. And the whole thing is Mount Kenya Forest and the Mount Kenya, if you just look at the mountain itself and the way it's designed, there's the Mount Kenya National Park basically surrounds that's around the forest. So how has this area been designated where the running is going to be?
What we have done is that we have involved the owners of the land, that is the Kenya Forest Service. We are working with the KWS, and of course the base, which is the Kenya School of Adventure and Leadership, is also with us. We're also working with the Community Forest Association, because they're the keepers of the forest. And having this team now, of course, with the Meru Sports Council, and of course the sports department itself, we have actually looked at the regulations as per the World Mountain Running Association. Since it's a championship, it is to be regulated within the regulations. And we have mapped up the route properly, and with the permissions from the Kenya Forest Service and the KWS, we have been able to be allowed to at least clear a little bit the thicket, whereby it is easier to pass for the athletes. It is not the smoothest, because as you see, as you can see, the theme is challenging the heights. So basically you're going to have the ground challenge of very uneven ground, and even climbing up the hills and all that, coming down the valleys and the trenches. So it is up to you as an athlete to be able to be very attentive, and it is not about the speed, it is basically about getting through the challenges that are there in the mountains.
Talking about this is that we've indicated various categories are going to be there, and this is where I'd like to come into and look at each when it comes to Mount Kenya. For anybody who's done mountaineering, they always say is that while Kilimanjaro is much higher than Mount Kenya, it has the gradient of the mountain is not that steep. But Mount Kenya, even just by the look of it, is a steep mountain. So for the various categories, starting with the family fun run of 2 kilometers, what's the section that could be done?
The 2 kilometers is basically at 2,800 meters, and this is meant for those of us who feel that they want to become healthy and participate and have fun for participation. And of course, we have the 6 kilometers, which is as per the regulations. That's the categories that we must allocate ourselves to. And then we have the 8 kilometers. And then, of course, for the I think the junior and the youth, and the girls will do the 6 kilometers, which will be the first race. The 12 kilometers is open because for this in this case in Kenya, we have the elites. We're looking at the elites, but at the same time, we cannot deny the recreation runners, people who love running, to just participate. So we're saying the 12 kilometers is inclusive of the elites and anyone who feels that he wants to take up the challenge.
So as per the mountain running regulations, what's required for the 2 kilometer family fun run?
The 2 kilometers is not inclusive in the regulation. It is very simple for all those who want to participate, so that we don't lock out potential participants who wish to support. Because I mean, we are all candidates of the cause that we are supporting here, and therefore we should be able to look at it in a much different way, that we make sure that each and every person has a small piece, small part to play, being it 2 kilometer, being it 6, 8, and 12.
Now, coming up to the junior levels, the women's distance is 6 kilometers.
Yes.
How would you describe that section of the course where they're going to run as per the regulations that have been set?
It is not as easy as it might be less in kilometers, because the setting of the course, it's all on the same line. Basically, it means where the 6 kilometers are running, the 8 kilometers are running, and the 12 kilometers. For the first 3 kilometers, they are doing the same route. Except for the 6 kilometers, it will start 2 kilometers from the starting line. That gives it a 6 kilometer, because it's only 8. 8 and 12 will start at the same place and end at the same point. So the 6 kilometers will be into in 2 kilometers inward, and they will start from now the kilometer 2 to get to the 3, 4, 5, and then come to finish at 6 at the finish point. And then the 8 kilometers now will start at the starting point. It is the same line, so we'll just have to get to space the event, that the 6 starts first, the 8 goes, and then the 12 can come.
So how do you fix the 12 within that loop, within the course?
The 12 is the longest. So if you have the 12 is the longest, and the way it is designed, it is a 1-loop course. So the farthest point is 6 kilometers. So from the start to the first hill, it is 3 kilometers. So 3 kilometers means 6 will just turn around and come back. And then the 8 will come up to there from the start. It is 4 kilometers. Then they come back. So that in that way, the synchronization of the race and even the spacing of the race is important, because you don't want a scenario whereby all the races are coming to finish at the same time.
Looking at videos of mountain running and the terrains that are there, how would you describe the surface on that Mount Kenya?
Normally, it's supposed to be natural. We have the natural trails that either the mountaineers have been going through. Only in specific areas whereby we want to divert and create an uphill, that we are going to clear a little bit the environment. But since we cleared like a month ago, already the new vegetation has come up. So basically, also you'll also find that there are some, like the wild animals are using it to go up and down, because it is easier, it is noiseless because of without the thicket in between. And that is what we are looking to, because it is supposed to be as natural as possible. We don't do any clearing, we only cut the vegetation and leave a small path, like for example, 2 people can pass each other. The other area also we are looking at is those areas with water points. You have to clear enough space to allow the water points. And of course the security, the recorders and the timers to be on board. And of course the most important is the medical. And going up, I think, poses a lot of challenges, not only the ground itself. You are also dealing with a thin air. And of course above that will be of course your physical capability and capacity and ability to be able to tackle all those issues at the same time and manage your pace.
Because you've mentioned about thin air, and I was going to come to that. High altitude conditions, the pulmonary edemas or cardiovascular edemas, HAZE and HAPE as they call them. How are you going to deal with them? At what point do you have the medical staff, so that if somebody is 3,000 meters above sea level and they still start feeling a little bit dizzy or they can't breathe, they're given the due attention.
I think in this scenario, we have looked at all the checkpoints. We're going to have medical checkpoints. And we are also working with the KWS, who have the rescue emergency team, which I hear is one of the best within the region. Therefore, these are the people who we are relying on, that they will help us. The only areas that might be a bit of concern would be in between the checkpoints, which still we are going to keep medical or walkers, or we will find something like a motorbike that is going to run up and down to just make sure that nobody has a stress in between that can be taken in as quickly. Of course, the medical team will also come up with the oxygen tanks and stuff, so that if you feel that you are as an athlete, if you feel that it is becoming so hard for you, you shouldn't pass the next stage without getting some oxygen and recover. Because as I say, it is not about pace, it is not about time, it is about endurance and your capacity, ability, and how well you can resist all this. But at the same time, life comes first.
We'll be talking about the coaching aspects of how one prepares for this race and how much it would take, especially for recreational runners outside of the elite runners. And the other one I would like to take is, you mentioned the checkpoints. There's a famous case of a character known as Njogu at the Nairobi Marathon, who, I mean, as a marathoner, you know, there's the deposit of salt that accumulates behind the years. He didn't have it, but there he was, and he sprinted to the line and was claiming his 500,000 shillings or 750,000 shillings for finishing third at the Nairobi Marathon. So how do you deal with checkpoints for each of the for the 6, 8, and 12 kilometer races?
One of the reasons why we are spacing the event is because of such issues, so that we are able to clear one section at a time. Of course, at every kilometer, we are also working with Athletics Kenya in the eastern region. And we were with them on the ground. They have taken their positions, and they will give us the recorders, because you need to have the manual checker, and also I think we are going also to have the electronic checking. So basically, within those two, we are able to tell when and how you did pass at a certain point.
So you've been given clearance to have, you know, electronic devices moving around the Mount Kenya area, because you know, I mean, most at some of the parks, mobile networks.
Yeah, they will work, because you see the chip system. If we have the chip system, we have the MAT. Basically, that will work. It is not a transmitted signal from below. It is within the area, so that should be able to cover that. And if that then doesn't work, then we also have the manual from the mandated body, which is Athletics Kenya in this case, that they'll have their manual recorders, who then we can have a team to check that and make sure that everything runs smooth.
What is the cutoff age for junior runners? The youngest they should be, because you may have a 13-year-old who wants to do the 13-year-old girl who wants to do the 6K, or 13-year-old boy who wants to do the 8-kilometer run. What's the minimum age you will allow?
I think from normally what we hear is that anywhere from 5 years probably to 13 years, they can do the 2 kilometers, because they are probably parent assisted. And at that level, we would not want a very young athlete to just go up with high altitude by herself or himself. That one will need assistance from an elder or anybody who is helping this young athlete. I know that from the youth is basically we look at the pathway, the pathway that is normally required by the federation, which means that is from 8 years, and then the next will be probably, maybe you can go an increment of 4 years, which is 12 years, and then 16 years, and then 20 years. So within there, because now, as World Athletics says, is under 20. So under 20 is the youth. So basically we look at anybody under 20, but it cannot be under 13 or so.
So there you've had it. And how do athletes now prepare before we get to the other aspect of this race? Because it's, how would I describe it? It's just cross country, but in real natural conditions.
One of the things that we all forget is the physical condition first. We always think about running fast. We always think about being strong. But in any preparation that you want to do, in this case, this is the mountain running. Number one would be your physical condition. How far are you able to run an hour? Are you able to run half an hour or 45 minutes? That prepares you to be conditioned physically to now start doing the climb work. The climb work will consist of a few things. First is the strength. You have to build strength by climbing up. And that will take time because it doesn't happen very regularly. So you have to have sessions whereby you do flat and you do uphills. I think if you look at the timeline that we have now, we have about almost, I think, 2 weeks or so.
A month. I mean, 3 weeks to the 22nd.
Yeah, 3 weeks. We're not going to count the third week, probably 2 weeks. 2 weeks, if you can try and do more of the uphill with slow pace and make sure you get the heights, that will conditionally put your physical in good position. But being fit physically does not mean you're able to tackle the thin air. And the issues up there, because there is the thin air, there is the warmth, there is the cold. So you'll need to know exactly how you also have to wear. And if you're a person who sweats more, it means you'll get colder as you go higher and the air is thinner. So you'll have to figure out the heat generation and how well you can keep yourself warm.
And here it is. And what I would like to ask is this, because you mentioned about clothing. And anybody who's done any hiking in the mountains and you work with the guides, they'll tell you this is what you need. So how do you balance your clothing? Or, I mean, depending on how your body is built.
Number one, I think any cotton materials that goes up the mountain will soak in a lot of sweat. So that probably would be a no-go zone. You shouldn't wear cotton because it will soak. Runners, once they start moving, the immediate thing that the body does is start sweating. So basically you need the dry fit, which means that if you can get the material that when you sweat, the inside remains dry, that would be the best t-shirts to wear to keep you warm up there. Because the problem will probably be when you start walking or you are unable to keep your running, then you start cooling. And depending on the distance that you have to walk before you get warm again, that will be, I think, the challenge.
And to keep warm, at times we see the spunked materials. What would you recommend? Gloves or even a cap?
I really feel that if you are in motion, in running, that is, no matter how slow you are, you will be warm enough. Because again, as I said, the more you go up, everything becomes heavy because your air is very thin and your energy demand becomes very high. So you really have to do the calculations. You either take the water at the water points, and if you decide to carry your water all the way, you need actually to think about the weight and how well you're going to prepare yourself, because all that will depend on how much weight you carry by the time you come down.
Douglas Wekihuri is the technical advisor of the Mount Kenya Running Championship, and eventually, if you're going to do a championship in Kenya, it means there's funds. And before I even get to the prize money, how does one get into this? Is registration still open before we even move on to the other aspects of this event?
Yes, the registration is open and it's online. We are on www.mountkenyarun.co.ke. You can register there. And there are, as the category said, we have the 12-kilometer elite men and women, 12-kilometer amateur men and women, 8-kilometer junior boys and 6-kilometer junior girls, and 2 kilometers race, which is meant to keep all doctors away. We also have the 12-kilometer corporate. Yeah.
Well, you can keep registering, but then there is the whole essence of this championship and the impact that has to be put on the community. And Meru, before I even mention this, how far is this from Meru town or Nkobo or wherever?
It's about, I think, for about 36 kilometers.
From Meru town?
From Meru town.
That's right at the foot of Mount Kenya?
Yes, actually the base of the mountain. So, because it's only 2,800. And one of the things that we would probably want you to think about as a participant, it is the same road that we are using, the same road you're coming in with. So basically, I would like you to be at the venue as early as possible so that when we start preps, you are in and ready to go. It is quite cold, So be prepared to be warm.
Describe the direction from Meru town.
From Meru town, you come up to Kibirishia, you branch in on Kibirishia, and you come all the way up to there is a KBC mast. At the KBC mast, you just go a little bit and turn on your left. From there, you enter the park, which is the Kenya School of Adventure and Leadership, and it's 9 kilometers from the tarmac. So you'll enter into Rough Road, which is basically good, but it is a single lane. So you can't go in and out of it. So it's a single lane. And yes, all the way 9 kilometers, you are at the Kenya School of Adventure and Leadership.
By virtue of it being in the park, are there waivers for entry for those who are going to participate?
They are not charging, I think, for the entry, because it is basically a place whereby we do team building. It is a platform for team building and all that. So it is a school, kind of. So there is no charges, but of course there are accommodation and meals and the programs charges that are there. But since Kessel is one of our partners, then I think we have agreed that we will work together to see that everybody benefits, because it's the conservation part of it is going into that. And also, as we look at the cause, the other bigger cause will be the fight against cancer.
And that's what I want to come to, because the proceeds from the Mount Kenya Running Championship, they will be used to fund the establishment of the Meru Cancer Center at the Level 5 hospital. And before we even get to the conversation, for the mounted bongo and for the rhino, the county government of Meru coming into this with a high prevalence of cancer, and that's according to a report that was presented to the National Assembly by the National Cancer Institute in June last year. What has the county government, presented as their main reason for having the cancer center set up through this event?
I believe there is a percentage of the patients who are suffering from cancer. And that is why it becomes then the cause and the priority to see that we have an institute, so that we can be able to be treated within the Meru County. But on the other hand, I think we are all candidates, basically. You just don't know when and how it will come. Therefore, sports is one of the great vehicle that having the mountain around in Meru that we can use to push the awareness, to do the fundraising, and at the same time to make sure that you are much fitter as we move on with our lives.
The other thing is, Meru, it's a national park, but Meru probably better known for that $1 billion cash crop. But conserving the environment and the mountain bongo and the rhino, what's the story of these two animals from the organizers, from an organizer's point of view?
Well, I think there is the ecosystem of the forest itself, and we as the population is growing, we must also create space for ourselves. But forest is one of the ecosystems that is giving us water, and it has its own residents that are there, and I believe one of them is bongo, which probably is almost extinct. We want to bring it back and appreciate what nature has given us as humans. And I think if this works around, we also want to push for the other counties around the mountain to do the same, so that we can complete the 360 angle of conserving the mountain itself.
So for the rhino, I know most of them are in sanctuaries and everything, but for the people who are there, what is it that they can see and get involved with? Because when you got the wildlife and all that, and our tourism sector is built around wildlife.
As I said earlier, we are involving the Community Forest Association. These are the immediate keepers of the forest, protecting trees, taking care of the trees, planting trees, and that is a very important community. And if then that community is involved, it means that we are seeing the growth of the forest as much as we are also destroying it at the same time. But there, at least there's the keepers. There's the Kenya Forest Service, and the community is embracing the whole idea that, number one, we are going to see the flow of tourism in Meru. We are getting closer to Meru, not just like hearing what is in Meru. We are coming to see, we are coming to run, and of course we are going to be able to engage with the Meru people and learn what we probably don't know about Meru. But for sure, I think the mountain is one of the great areas that Meru has. And as the governor said, that one of the areas that in his speeches he says he wants to make Meru great. In that sense, I think all the Meru people are behind the governor, and with the introduction of the mountain running, we are just going to make Meru greater.
And also the involvement of the public who are there to watch. There is always something known as fan engagement, and this is outside of those who are participating. One of the things is, how do you engage the public so that somebody can travel for 36 kilometers in, and basically that's driving 1 hour from Meru town into the forest to go and watch this spectacle? How do you engage such people?
We have a lot of activities engaged, arranged, and some of the activities will be, there's a zip line, there's the food festival, there's the expo, apart from running. And I believe that up to now, Meru has never experienced such a big magnitude of an event in running. So I believe that with the media that has pushed the event, Meru people will be curious to come and see how these runners do their thing. I think that will be very, very interesting. And as you know, the Women World Championship mountain running champion is actually from Meru, which probably has never been seen.
Lucy Muregi.
Yes, she has never been seen. So I think these are
she won the championship in 2017.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
I ranked number 1 in the world last year.
I believe that the Meru people would want to come and see her live competing, because she's one of the elites that we're expecting her to win the race on her home ground.
And attracting the elite runners who are in mountain running, getting somebody, I know it's getting into the marathon season, but how do you get somebody who normally would be a road runner to get into mountain running and offer the same financial incentive as would be available on the roads?
The prize money, if you look at it, is 500,000 shillings. And
for the winner?
For the winner, for men and women. And then we have the 2 is 250,000. The third one is 100,000. I think this is very lucrative, compare that you're going to do 12 kilometers and earn 500,000 shillings. But you also must understand, every athlete is different. The athletes who do like the world records are a bit leaner and thinner, and they cannot actually run very well in a hot season. Okay? So they must have at least a limited weight to push through the cold so that they can run fast, because that eliminates the issue of exhaustion. Our body physically do not expend heat very well. So either you are lighter, in cold area you run fast. In this case, the mountain running actually will look at probably the shorter athletes who are much stronger and they are not that fast. Why being short is because if you consider the weight you have to carry up and your frame, the turnover of your frame up the mountain, if it's quite huge, then you're going to really, really struggle to try and push up. But if you are shorter, you can manage to do the smaller steps, and that will propel you very quickly compared to somebody who's a bit taller and bigger.
Well, coming from you as a technical advisor, you don't fall into that category of the low center of gravity.
If you look at my performance when I used to run, I never ran a world record, but I did very well in summer. That means I'm strong, and I can endure. So going up the mountain will not be a challenge to me, because I know I have the strength. I might be heavier, but as I said, I'll just have to lean a bit, and I'll be able to work it very well.
Then sustaining it, because that's the biggest story. We've had, from your personal experience, I know you know how difficult it is to through the Sotokoto event. You know how difficult it is to sustain an event. What is the plan to have this? Because as a championship, having one event a year. Could be like the nationals, all that. But how do you keep it going with other mountain running events?
One of the areas that we are exploring is, number one, let us have this the first World Mountain Running, Mount Kenya Mountain Running Championship in Kenya as the first one. Then if this does well, the second thing probably we are going to look at is to look at for the World Series. So we request and get a permission to host a World Series. So we'll be having two. And then of course the third one will be of course bidding for the World Mountain Running Championships to come into Kenya through Meru. In this way, I believe that we are going to open up Africa. We have very few races within Africa, but we have very good teams that have been winning the World Mountain Running Championship, but we don't have the events. And therefore, it will just take us, since we have our able governor who has put in a lot of passion into this, I hope all the other counties around the mountain can come up, and then we create a circuit that can see now the growth and also taking the young talent, that in future we also look as a country to see if we can win the World Mountain Running Championship for men and women.
What would be required from the World Mountain Running Association for you to get into the series and eventually into the championship, to have a championship event?
We're going to try and invite them, see if they will be able to come and see what we are doing. And of course, that is subject to the certification and the classification of the route itself, mark point to point. And if that works, they agree with the route. I think
that means GPS technology has to be used for that.
Well, that's what
given the terrain, it's undulating.
That's what we have used. We are on point. We're sure that we are on point, that the 12 kilometers is actually 12.23. The 8 kilometers is 8.1, and the 6 is one which has come very, very correct, which is 6.0. So we hope that these points will be certified. And once they are certified, we are now given an approval or a green card by the World Mountain Running Association. And of course, being affiliated to Athletics Kenya, then that opens up more doors for us to venture into deeper and higher events. Because we really don't have to do the championship. We can open up the marathon, with the mountain running marathon, which is one way is up, you finish up, and the other way you finish down. So we can create a bit of other events around the mountain that can keep us moving over the year before we come to the championships.
Talking about, keeping that, about athletes who are there and the prize money, any interests from Uganda, which has a more developed, interesting enough. Yes, they have a better mountain running culture than we do have in Kenya. Any interest from them?
I think we're going to reach to them and see if they will come. I know they will be very happy to come and beat us here around. But equally, we also have really very good boys and girls who can equally match the game. So I bet that if Uganda comes, we already know that Italy has captured it, and it was on the Italian newspaper. So we are also hoping that we're going to have some international athletes coming to see how it is. And I believe it is, again, another opening that we have not ventured into, to diversify the regular running and road racing circuit, to just put it up higher and see how the market will be. Because I believe that Kenya stands a chance to win the World Mountain Running Championship.
Well, we hope to see another world champion, for example, like Lucy Muregi, with 320 points, being top of the world at the end of when the calendar was released going into 2019, and ranked number 1. And Jeffrey Ndungu was ranked 3rd in the world at around the same time. Those are some of the Kenyan athletes would be expecting at that championship. Now, the other matter that comes in when it comes to this, and for you to develop it to the highest level and get into the World Series, are anti-doping. This is an issue that cuts across athletics and all sport. How are you going to deal with this part of running a championship of this nature?
As any other race that is required, we are calling in for the anti-doping agency to come on board. And of course, it is a cost that we have to cater for. so that each and every athlete or the winners probably will be tested. There are requirements when we get the permit, proper permit. Then of course that has to be aligned within the agency's requirements and also WADA to see that we are running fair and clean. Yes.
And at the end of it all, and from this point, how much information is reaching to these athletes? Because there are times we've heard of bizarre cases, people trying to jump over fences, through flying out windows, trying to move away from this. How much sensitization has been made to those who are registering for the event?
I think if we want to learn, we can learn. If we choose not to learn because of some excuses that we always give, we can do that. If you look at a particular athlete, there's so much that they do. There's so much that they do, and they learn from the beginning. When you are talented, does not mean you know everything, but you go through coaching. And I believe that this issue of drugs is very well in the system, and each and every athlete understands it. But we choose either to ignore, which is not an excuse. All right? Like, for example, if I give you my story, when I started, I was 19 years old. I went to Japan. All right? I had no idea about drugs. But within my character, I never accepted a lot of drugs in my line. So any kind of drug that would come probably would be a question mark. Do I really need to take it or not? All right? Because I don't want to be subjected into those issues. I am happy that today I've been in the athletics for over 32 years, and I'm very happy the way I am. I ran what I could with all the best I could, and I don't regret that is how it ended. But let me tell you, you need to look for this information. You need to understand what you're getting into, because if the consequences are higher, I have 3 gold medals and 1 Olympic silver. I really wouldn't want that taken away simply because of an ignorance, or I chose not to. So I would advise each and every one of us as athletes, now we know that we have a problem with anti-doping, all right, or doping.
Yes.
We have a problem with doping. Let us put our minds together. Let us go through the procedures the same way we go through training, and we go over it, because it is not a problem. We just choose not to.
Now, Douglas, as we come to this point, this is where, when does registration close for this event? For anyone who'd like to participate and run in the thin air of Meru County?
As you know, our culture, we always be the last guys to register. I would advise that as much as we have a closing date, it would be best for you to register as early as possible. Let us not rush for the last minute registrations. I know that there are some of us as athletes who really probably are into financial issues, but you can get somebody to sponsor an athlete, so to avoid such scenarios.
What's the registration fee for it? For the elite race?
The registration is, I think, for the elite is 2,500, and all the other races is 2,000 shillings. Yeah.
And coming into this, what are the numbers you're looking at? Because I know from one event where they do not allow more than 1,200 people in their 70. But what has the Kenya Forest Service and the Kenya Wildlife Service, what have they agreed?
Initially, we were looking at about 5,000 runners. But so far, I think what I'm looking at now, we have had about 1,000 registrations. So we are going to wait and see in the next couple of weeks, see who is going to register. But I think if we have hit the 1,000 mark, we're still good. And I think it's a good thing to see how it will work out. Because in future, probably then it will become more competitive, and see how well we can organize that. Because one of the things that we need to probably look at is not the numbers, it's actually the safety of all the participants, that they go up there and they come back safe.
Now that you've mentioned the numbers, they will come there will be water being carried and everything. We have some very bad habits as Kenyans. We don't pick up our litter. How are you going to deal with that? plastics and, sponges or things or whatever people may use as they do their running, gel wraps. How do you deal with litter?
I think in every event organization, you have to make sure that you have a responsible person who will go through to sweep up. Number one, you sweep the participant. You be the last one, make sure that everybody is out of the forest. Then number two, I think the Kenya Forest Service will be hard on us and KWS to just go and check and see that we have taken each and every litter that has been littered. I wish we could get a different way of packaging our water, that it doesn't have to be plastic. And let me tell you that the conservation part of it, it is not only collecting the litter that we have used, it's even collecting the litters that have been thrown there, because the forest is not only used by, it's not going to be used by us alone. There are border guys who use the forest, and we find litters. Even like a few weeks back, we went for a dry run with the Mazingira Striders team, which is from the UN. And we went through all the way, and I could see them really caring for the Mazingira, because they were collecting the plastics and just carrying them and running with them back to the center. So I think conservation will be not only planting trees, but also making sure that the forest is clean, and also try to push for the community, the residents that are there, that they should keep the park clean.
What is the time frame within which to hold this event, considering that, this is a mountain, things do happen, it can rain at any time. You never tell a mountain how to, when to be calm or when, to let the elements run?
Well, I think if you come with the same mentality as a participant, anything can happen. Just be ready for what to expect. You can expect rain, it can be foggy, it can be cold. But whichever the situation, it is the day. Given if it was the World Championship day, we all have to participate. Where come rain, come cold, come foggy, we still have to go. But just make sure you have all the what is required and what it takes to challenge the heights.
Gear, especially when it comes to the footwear, given that it's natural terrain, what do you use? Normal running shoes, do you get spiked or do you get?
No, I wouldn't advise you to do any spikes, but I would advise you to do normal cross-training shoes that you are used to. If you're caught on time and you have not done much, don't try new tricks. Just come, take it easy, you know where you are, and see what you can do.
So what time do we have the first race, which I think would be the 2 kilometer for the family fun race?
We're looking at probably around 8:30 in the morning. Hopefully, if the weather allows, but we are looking at 8:30 in the morning.
So that means for a Nairobi person, you've got to travel to Meru a day before. If you get into the park, which is 1 hour away.
I mean, we want people to come to Meru. So come on Friday, have a place in Meru. Come do the park. Then enjoy the party. I think there's an after party and the food festival and stuff. And mingle with the community of Meru and make friends. And also, again, then Saturday is a long day. And then Sunday, you can actually tour Meru itself, maybe tour Meru National Park and see what Meru looks like, Let's not hear about it, let's come and see.
For the people of Meru, what is it that you want from them? We know they drive their cars fast, but question is, are they going to be a part of it?
Let me tell you one thing. There's nothing so special with anybody. I mean, if you are subjected to a situation, you will do it. I want to grow Meru sports. I want to see runners from Meru, not only in mountain running. And hopefully, let us see, because we are looking at two sports. We're looking at the mountain running and we're looking at archery. We hope that we'll be able to push to see that at some point we have Meru archers competing in the Olympics, because we also have to dream, and it's just us with a dream.
Douglas Wekihori, the technical advisor of the Mount Kenya Running Championship, that's going to take place in Meru County, and that's within the Mount Kenya National Park on the 22nd of February, starts at 8:30 a.m. Let's see how that one goes down and how much we can enjoy. Douglas, we hope to have some people there running and enjoy the Mount Kenya Forest. So that has been it on behalf of the team that put this together, our team out in Nairobi who are doing the reports. I want to say thank you. Our sign language interpreters, Byron Abuli and Lucy Maura, who's on at the moment. We want to say thank you, and the directing and editorial team. Thank you very much. I am Daniel Wahome, and I'll leave you in the good hands of Nancy Okware on this Swahili Bulletin, Tamrini.